We're now going to hear from Executive Director Bill Perez.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. It seems like a heartbeat away, but it was a year ago, spring of last year, when I first met with many of you and spoke to what the vision was longer term for RASC. We are still on that journey, and today I'm going to provide you with some of the updates that we have, including some that were unknown to us at the time when I first joined, and that was the transition over to a shared services operating model. So if we could advance to the next slide. All right, so we're going to tackle a couple of things. One is providing you with an update of what RASC has been focused on over the last year. And then in tandem with members of my team, we'll address some of the JBC issues that were brought up that are pertinent to RASC, some RASC in partnership with PATH. In the most general sense, one of the largest changes that transpired in terms of how we operate is the realignment that took place, 7 months ago now. I wish it were 7 years, but we'd be much further along. But 7 months ago, we made a transition under system-wide shared services, currently under Interim Vice President Calvin Turner. And we were looking to leverage economies of scale, particularly in areas of contract negotiations and RFPs. We have initiated the work on a governance model and continue to work along those lines. One of the best examples in terms of improved coordination between the two areas is that one of the things that impacts RASC as our core focus, which is the processing and initiation of benefit, are potential creditable service issues that arise and the ability to share information between UCPath, which is our source of that data, and RASC. And so for that purpose, in advance of a longer term solution, PATH has granted a certain number of licenses for their CRM to be able to access information more quickly and share it. I think Calvin's analogy of that is they would take information, tie it to a rock, throw it over the fence. PATH would work, RASC would work on it, lob it back over. One of the things that we clearly need is a joint client relationship management system, a CRM, to be able to share common member information, including the acquisition of certain records that RASC requests that are already in the possession of PATH. So it seems duplicative to ask for that information again. That coordination goes far beyond just the work with the core areas, because we do remain two very distinct business areas. Payroll is the core function of UCPath. Ours is to ensure the initiation of benefit and also those factors that are associated with it. Any concerns that members have as they approach retirement, in which we have endeavored to grow our counseling services and will continue to do so in the years ahead. The resource alignment issues that we have faced in part were due to the unfortunate timing of our ability to reorganize, but while facing also the challenges that the UC system and universities across the country have faced in terms of administrative pressures. As a result of that, as you're well aware, there's been an ongoing hiring freeze, which has a process to request mission critical positions, but it's a process that moves slowly. And we have been successful in gaining approval on backfill of positions. We continue to work and endeavor in that regard. But it does add additional pressures that we face. Staffing is one of them. And the other is we are a pension administration system. And for that, we rely on a software platform as a solution. We have need of support to be able to stabilize that platform. Those needs continue and will likely continue into the future. One of the advantages that we have under this new umbrella is the partnership that we have between the rigorous IT team that resides within UC Path and the digital services team under Matt Tyndall that oversees IT support in conjunction with a group in technology services. It's not a small group, about 44 permanent employees and another 3 contract employees. They work on behalf of RASC to address the platform issues that we have. But if I were to summarize to you the biggest problems that we have to overcome are working on stabilizing and enhancing the pension administration platform that we have. Many of you know it by the name of Redwood. That platform can work very efficiently, and our goal is to get it to that level. The partnership that Matt will continue to evolve with his counterpart at UC Path is going to be pivotal in getting us to that state. The other examples of successes, I mentioned those shared licenses, but what we have are perhaps a handful, 6 licenses, 5 or 6, for individuals to be able to move information back and forth. Currently, we're involved in perhaps one of the biggest benefits of a shared services model. We are looking to incorporate Salesforce as a CRM. My understanding is that years ago, Salesforce was actually leveraged within RASC, and for reasons that I cannot share with you because I wasn't here at the time, we moved away from that. Of course, UC Path is already using Salesforce for the maintenance of member information. We have common members, so it makes perfect sense for us to move toward onboarding on that platform. And we are working in conjunction with UC Path and IT services for the implementation of Salesforce, which will be a huge advantage in being able to optimize processing of information. Another example of an early success is that we are also on the same telephony platform, which is TalkDesk. And so right now we're in the midst of a joint negotiation for an extension of the contract, which will help with the fact that we have economies of scale to negotiate both contracts. Centralized budget reconciliation. We used to work independently with finance, and now under the new system-wide shared services umbrella, we have the opportunity to work with the UC Path controller directly, Brandy Festa. And so that gives us sort of a greater clout, if you will, in terms of presenting our specific needs and looking at our budget with an eye towards what software solutions and what potential staffing accommodations in the budget that we need to maintain. The other piece that is critical to us is having the resources of the much larger IT unit that resides within UC Path to work on common issues. And in terms of perhaps the most significant of those issues have been the security issues associated with fraud. Although often referred to as a RASC fraud issue, it's much broader than that. And those involved in the responsiveness to that have included UC Path, TDS, in conjunction with our cybersecurity group, legal, and then outside entities which we have brought in to assist as well. We will be speaking to that point directly, so I'm not going to divert into the fraud responsiveness at this point. I will hand it over to my colleague Matt Tyndall to do that. But just speaking to some of the successes we've had since the reorganization over a period of 7 months, I'd say one of the areas that we've made the greatest strides, which I feel really great about, is our improvement in overall service delivery in terms of retirement initiation. And Cheryl spoke to that, it reminds me to put it high on the radar. July 1 retirement date, the expectation is initiation of benefit within 30 calendar days. That will be one of our metrics that we'll be tracking. We'll be speaking a little bit to that in a minute. But we did have a very high percentage. I'll let Ming go into the specifics of that in a few minutes when he covers performance. But it's probably the single highest metric that we are tasked to, because after all, we are retirement administration service centers. So timely retirement benefit initiation is one of the fundamental things that we need to get right. There are a number of other key metrics that we'll be tracking as well, but I'm pleased to see we've made a fair amount of progress in that particular regard. Operational enhancements, we finished a reorganization that we've shared information on in the past. We're currently finishing one of the last components of that, which actually involves a reclassification of certain key positions. And one of the ones that we put a lot of focus on was in the operational reorganization for Ming's area, which pretty much handles start to finish the entire retirement process. It's a series of 6 different gates that a process goes through. It's what's happening behind the scenes that you don't necessarily see. But from start to finish in a retirement, there are about 6 distinct areas that touch something before a retirement benefit is initiated. The member experience is one of those things that is at the core of everything we do. We are all here within RASC to serve all of you, and those as they contemplate transitioning from active to retired. And so to that end, we want to make sure that we're providing a low effort experience. That is the key element. When something is easy, I still remember those red "that was easy" button. I hope that at the end of this, if I were to reach out to Cheryl and ask her, how was your retirement experience, she'd be able to hit that button and say, that was easy, because it shouldn't be challenging. And I know that there are unique instances for some of our members that do find the process more challenging. In some cases, it might be associated with difficulty in navigating language. When we think about our broad collection of members across the UC system. But our goal is to make it as easy and seamless as possible for all of us, because at some point, we will all cross into that point where we have to decide, when do I transition into retirement? And in some cases, as we all know, we transition into retirement and then immediately or soon thereafter transition back in some way or another, whether it be within the UC system or not. But for RASC, our goal is to change the perception that perhaps has long existed. I still remember when I first came here and I asked for Ming's honest opinion of how he felt, having been at the time, about a year and a half in. And I said, give me a candid response. Well, how do you think we're doing? He said, well, Bill, I think we've gone from an F- to a D+. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound good at all. So if I'm a tough grader, my significant other always says, you're really tough grader when it comes to films. For something to get a 10, it has to really knock it out of the park. I would say right now we are at a C minus. So we're still, there are plenty of opportunities for us to improve the level of service delivery. And our goal is to achieve that within a reasonable period of time. We are looking to also have a basis upon which to gauge how good of a job we're doing. And so part of the Joint Benefit Committee report mentioned that I believe the way that it was framed is you provide a lot of charts and graphs and everything. Looks like you're doing a lot of work and you're very busy, but we'd love to see concrete metrics, KPIs that speak to how you're doing and where you plan to be at a period of time in the future. And so to that end, my predecessor, Bernadette, actually reached out to CEM benchmarking. I've worked with CEM benchmarking for many years at CalSTRS and also at TIAA. And we have some work to do to catch up with our peer group. We had a baseline year as Bernadette was transitioning out, and we will have our first CEM report. It should be in the August timeframe. Thomas Carthrin, one of our team members, is responsible for the relationship with CEM benchmarking. We are going to be looking at a custom report that looks at our peer group within the state of California. And the reason that's important is because a good part of the 278 pages of the CEM benchmarking report does focus on costs. And if you are not looking specifically at the state of California or other high cost states, we are a high cost of labor state. So it's critical to make sure that the peer group is appropriate. So the initial report, I believe, will focus on 8 different pension systems in the state of California. And I believe it will increase to 12, 15 different pensions in the following year. But there'll be some familiar names, as you might imagine. CalSTRS and CalPERS are both in that group. LA Sarah and others that hopefully will give us a good gauge in terms of comparison, particularly as it relates to managing within a high cost of labor state. The main focus is going to be on developing KPIs that are concrete in terms of service level commitments. So those KPIs will be associated with our commitments to you. A service level agreement or service level commitment is what we strive to deliver. As a for instance, 80% of all calls that come into RASC handled within a period of 60 seconds. And then the KPI behind it is how we actually did. We handled 76% within those 60 seconds. So we will have very clearly aligned KPIs that will show our performance relative to our peer group, and we'll be sharing that with the committees so that right now the most likely target is looking at quarterly type of updates of how we're doing. But that work is in progress right now. The reporting function, which was divvied up within a few different areas within RASC, is now centralized under Thomas. So he'll be heading up the dashboard. And just as a sort of advance note, the format that you have been seeing probably for the last couple of years will change significantly to a new dashboard look in the coming fiscal year. So with that, I'm going to transition over to my colleague, Matt Tyndall, who oversees digital experience and IT support for RASC to cover a couple of other topics relative to fraud.
Thanks, Bill. I guess I'm going to walk around since it's easier to read the on-screen version than it is I have to press my own button here. Okay. Security update. Everybody's favorite topic, security and fraud. Actually, I wanted to just go off script just a little bit and just reiterate what Bill was saying about everything that we do is here to make your lives easier, right? And so one of the things that I do on my team, which is digital strategy and systems, is I love acronyms. And the acronym I'm using with my team nowadays is FATE. And yes, we all have our fate, but in this case, fate is we deliver fast, accurately, timely, and easy. And in this case, fraud is under the accuracy part of that acronym. So we not only do we want to pay people the right amount, but we also want to pay the right people. And that is kind of where fraud comes in, right? So let's move into the fun part, which is the fraud. Overall context and scope of impact. So as you know, we started MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. Many of you know that as that 6-digit code that comes to your email or to your phone. It's not only that, but that is one of the main ways that we deal with multi-factor. We started that off in 2021 for direct deposit changes. And that was a really big step back then. But then we found in Q3 that we really needed to have more than that. We need to expand that capability. So that capability was expanded to all logins in UCRAs. So now when you log in, or now that when you register, you have to give us your phone number so that we can actually send you, or your email, so we can send you a 6-digit code. Unfortunately, right around the same time, we had a fraud event. Now, I'm not going to say that the fraud event was small and it didn't really matter. Every single fraud event matters, whether it was successful or not, because it teaches us about what we didn't do that we should have done, right? So from that perspective, they're all important. And it's very important to the 10 people who actually had money leave their retirement accounts. But from between October and February, we had fraud losses of $154,000 in change, and that was across 10 accounts. All members, and I repeat that, all members have been made whole. And that took us a while to figure out how to do that because we hadn't had to do that in quite some time, and we needed to put in place a new process for that. The total fraud that we actually saw represented $885,000, almost $886,000 across 47 accounts. We were able to step in and stop that fraud from happening. So that is a success story there. We have not incurred any fraud since December 18th, and there are multiple ways to count when it comes to this. There's when did the account get access for the very first time? When did the demographic change, whether it be direct deposit change or an email change or a physical address change, when did that occur? Or when did the fraud actually show up and money left the building, so to speak? This is when we found the fraud, when we internally knew that something was up and we needed to look at that account more closely. So in December 18th is the last time we have seen fraud. We have been very, very, I won't say lucky because we're working really, really hard to manually make sure that we are looking at everything. But we've been lucky in the sense that we haven't yet had a fraudster come in and figure out a way around the controls we already have put in place. So that's a good thing. Just some basic counts here. We have 395,000 UCRA's accounts, and only 10 accounts had funds lost. Again, every single one of these is important, and we have taken this very, very seriously. I think from there, any questions on that before I move on? Because this is usually the slide that everybody wants to talk about. Yes. They were random, and they were compromised through a combination of dark web searching and multiple attempts at social engineering with our call center. And so it was it wasn't a centralized kind of attack. It was a group of individuals. We don't know if it's one person or a bunch, but going in and trying to social engineer their way into figuring out a little bit here, a little bit there, and then they take a step back and combine it all together. That allowed them to get into the account. So unfortunately, they were able to do that, and we have done a lot to stop that from happening. Yes.
So you mentioned that there was social engineering within the call center. Were they actually targeting the call center representatives, or were they masquerading as the proposed victims?
Oh, they were masquerading. They were pretending to be somebody they were not and trying to walk through, and they would pretend to be confused, or they'd pretend to have close to the right information, but not quite. Potentially the CSR might repeat back to them what they thought they heard, and that's kind of how they did that thing. And they do it multiple times for the same account.
So a follow-up question then is, what kind of controls are now in place to prevent that?
I actually have a slide on that,
Okay.
And we're going to go into that, and I will sprinkle in some of the actual things that we're doing. The slide's a little bit generic, but I will actually sprinkle in a few things.
I think you said this, but just to clarify, these happened before multi-factor or at the same time, or what's the effect of multi-factor?
The effect of multi-factor is that it stopped the bleeding.
So these happened before.
It happened before.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to switch slides because I am also on a timeline. Not that I don't want to speak more to you. I will reserve some time at the end. Oh, we do have this. This is the okay. So I'm going to orient you to the slide first. Many of you have seen this slide already. I apologize to you for duplicating, but maybe some of you have not. The slide has the channels that we have. We have the web portal, which is UC We have contact center, which is RASC. We have behind the scenes. Those are the channels of operations we're going to talk about here. And then across the top, we have what I would call the moments in the transaction. So in this case, the transaction is somebody came in and wanted to do something that ultimately could have moved your money. So they came in and changed an email. They came in and changed a physical address. They might have changed direct deposit, anything that could eventually lead to what we call internally a high-risk transaction, right? So there's pre-transaction, things that we do ahead of time. There's stuff that we do while you're actually in the transaction. So if you're in UC or you're talking to a CSR, or somebody's processing your paper form that you've mailed in, that's the time in the transaction. And then you have post-transaction, which is where we have a little bit more time to spend making sure that the fraud doesn't get through. So the first thing we've done is pre-transaction. We want to prevent fraud before it starts, obviously. We have strengthened our identity verification and access controls before members can make changes to their accounts. It's kind of weird to have it over here. Includes multi-factor authentication, again, OTP, one-time passcode, right? That is also knowledge-based questions. So some of you may have gone through password reset or remember registration when it asks you a bunch of questions like, what house did you live in? Did you ever live on that street? Or what car did you have in 1985? Or whatever the case may be. Those are knowledge-based questions. We have strengthened all of those knowledge-based questions. It is also, when you get into the call center, it's system-based questions. So what do we know in the system that potentially we might ask you to confirm you are who you say you are? We have strengthened those questions as well. So those are two areas that have been very important to prevent additional fraud. Enhanced staff training. So that social engineering aspect that I discussed earlier, that's where the training comes in. We need to be constantly training our staff on asking the right questions, staying on script, staying with the process, follow the work instructions. Don't freelance, because there's a reason why we ask those questions, right? And that is part of what we're doing with training. It's constantly getting better and better at that. Tighter safeguards around sensitive updates. So for example, if somebody changes direct deposit, we're going to look at that now. We're going to look at that routing number. We're going to look at the account number. We are in the future going to be able to verify account ownership of the new account to make sure that that person who is on that new account is actually the person in our system. So that'll be something that we can do later down the road. That is not that far down the road. We're talking to people about how to actually implement that, both in the call center and in UC. And then behind the scenes, we are continuously looking at different ways to improve identity verification. And there's a difference. It's somewhat a nuance, but it is important. Identity verification is that initial set of evidence that you provide to us to confirm that you are who you say you are. So UCLA's registration is an example of identity verification. Authentication is when we take that identity verification and turn it into username and password. And now the username and password is a proxy for the original evidence that you provided to us. So we manage those separately, but they are very complementary. So you might hear me say one versus the other. Just think it's identity verification, making sure you are who you say you are. We are constantly looking for those, and we have some ideas that we're going to be circulating around with some of our retiree partners to discuss efficacy. If we move into the time of transaction, that is at the moment. So you're in UCRAs, for example, and you're making a change, right? We have put in additional safeguards. It could also be that if you're calling in, those are safeguards there as well. If you're sending in paper, again, at the time that somebody's doing that process and they're looking at that piece of paper and they're doing the things that they need to do in that moment to check for fraud. So some of those things are enhanced identity verification steps where we in the call center now have a tool that we can use to talk to people and say, hey, we need you to give us go through this identity verification step because this is a high risk transaction and it's for your benefit as much as anybody else that you go through this process. It's showing a government ID, it's taking a selfie, and that is a process. We recognize that's not for everyone, right? There are going to be some people for a variety of reasons who cannot go through that process. And so now we're trying to find secondary processes that we could use instead of that, if that is not the one that we can use. We are controlling for certain financial institutions. That's just a fancy way of saying, if you're on our bad list of other banks, we're not going to let you set up a direct deposit with that bank, right? There's a lot of e-banks out there that are basically set up just to do the thing that the fraudsters want them to do, right? We don't want them. We know who some of them are. There's always new ones, and that list gets longer and longer. Real-time monitoring and closer review of suspicious activity. Think of that more as being cyber aware of where people are coming from to UCRAs, making sure that there's not bad IP addresses that we already know about that are being allowed to get in. We will block those from the get-go. And then we will immediately, following the transaction, scrub against other things, other lists that we have to make sure that the cyber attackers are not getting in on them. Just some easy stuff, right, that we can call right away. And then again, our teams and systems are always working together to evaluate transactions as they happen to prevent fraud actions from occurring before they get through to funds movement. And then finally, in the post-transaction, I'm going to speed up just a little bit. We are doing a lot of post-transaction monitoring. So we are scrubbing anything that's come in, like, for example, direct deposit or address change, email change, phone number change. We're looking at all of those. And then we are saying, of these, which are the most suspicious? And then we actually do outbound calling to make sure that those identities are verified before any money moves out. Okay. We are constantly, again, looking to improve. This is a circular relationship. So what we find in post-transaction in terms of pattern analysis, in terms of identifying methodologies by which we can prevent fraud from the future, we roll into the pre-transaction process to make sure that there is a virtuous cycle there. And then finally, we have taken some more strategic measures. So this is where really we're looking towards the future and figuring out what's going on. But as a result of the initial event, we did engage a cyber forensics firm. They looked at all of our data. They looked at all of the patterns, and they were able to determine that the threat actor was not actually in our system. So we could trust the data that was already there. It was just those 10 accounts or those 47 that we were able to identify. Those were socially engineered and not part of some computerized infiltration. We also reached out to the FBI and informed them they have an ongoing investigation into this because this is a crime. We've given them all the information that we can. They will not tell us back what they find because that is an investigation on their part, but they are working with our our legal and our cyber people. Finally, we are actively and engaged in another consulting firm to develop a anti-fraud strategy, and this will probably be the precursor to a lot more strategic initiatives that we want to bring to bear, bringing in new technology, bringing in new techniques, bringing in more people, those types of things necessary to make sure that fraud never. I say this with quotes: fraud never happens again, but we will always be under attack, and it's only going to get worse. So we need to be catching up, and it's a cat and mouse game. We have also worked with other retirement systems and financial services firms to ask, what are you doing? I mean, how are you seeing fraud? Everybody's in the same boat. This is not a RASC or a UC issue. This is a worldwide trillion-dollar business. And when I say trillion, I mean trillion. As much money as Elon Musk has, right? And so we are working with those other partners and those other service providers. That is the end of my scripted information. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? Amy.
Matt, that was fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you walking us through that, and it looks really good. I'm really impressed. So tell us, what keeps you up at night these days?
I have three things that keep me up at night, and it's short, medium, and long term. The short term is, how do I get everybody authenticated? How does every single person who's a retiree, regardless of their circumstance, whether they're technologically astute, whether they are in a hospice care and they need to do something really fast, whether they are right out of employment and don't even know what they're doing, they just know they need to get in a UC raise and sign up for something, right? How do I get everybody authenticated? And that's really a hard thing, because we have so many use cases to deal with. We have relationships with people for a half a century, easily. From the moment you onboard as an employee and you come in and sign up for this weird thing called a UC raise, that I don't need to know that, right? But we want to habituate you to come in and check your service credit and your things like that over time, all the way till the last person in your beneficiary list passes away and no longer needs a payment. That is decades of a relationship. That's the first thing. The second thing is, how am I doing on time? Oh, I should be finishing up. The second thing is, we are entering a new phase of cyber fraud. I don't know if any of you have heard of Mythos. I mean, it's been in the news, Anthropic. That is going to be something that is going to hit us in the not distant future, and they will attack us with that. The question is, how do we get ourselves prepared ahead of time? I think we need to probably look at some of our analog processes, as well as incorporating additional digital processes to make sure that we can handle anything that happens, because we can't shut the doors. We have to keep sending payments out to folks because you earned it, right? So thank you. I think there's maybe a couple of more. Ming, are you two, am I cutting you off on time? Are you going to be okay? Okay. Ming's like, keep talking.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Hi. I'm Jose Vutker from UC Riverside. So here's what's keeping me up at night, which is, first thing, the two-factor authentication, just as an example, has been around for 10 years, and you implemented it in 2025. So what are your plans? I'm going to ask several questions and then you can answer. So it's not, what are your plans for that not to happen? I mean, there will be new methods of trying to prevent this type of crime. And hopefully you will not be waiting for a decade before implementing them. The second one is, to this date, as far as I'm aware, there has been no communication from the university to our users about what has happened. Unless you know that criminals have all reformed and everything's going to be nice, I'm sure there will be other instances, no matter how well prepared you are, and it's not your problem, that where we will be attacked successfully. And what I would like to know is what plans you have to ensure that we're not kept in the dark until this thing happens. Thank you.
So I think the first part of your question was the 10 years of being under the new Redwood system. Yeah. So I think we're going to have a variety of things that we do in the next year or two, right? Which is using AI to fight AI, using analog to fall back and give us time to regroup, using different ways of doing pattern analysis. I think those are the things. It's not going to be one silver bullet with this. This is going to be a multi-pronged, probably institution-wide kind of response that we need to make sure that the fraud is handled in an appropriate way. We are talking with UC Path about the potential reuse, not reuse, but using the same credentials to get into Path and to UC Rays. That's one thing. The fewer credentials there are out there floating around, the fewer trouble that we might find ourselves in. We're also looking at, and this is not me personally, this is the IT organization looking at how can we create a UCOP system-wide kind of framework for security across all the campuses. And that's at the very beginning stages of a conversation. That's probably going to come out of Van's organization, which is on the IT side. The communication one, I think, is just an ongoing way that we need to improve how we reach out to you. We need to improve how we communicate to you that, hey, there's something either with your account specifically or just in general, right? There are things that we can and can't say in the moment, right? I can't say to you in a communication that we're under a cyber attack, right? Because then I tip my hand to the bad guys and then they change as soon as they find out that we're on to them. So we have to do things in the background to kind of avoid tipping our hand while also giving you information at the same time. And that's a real delicate balance for us. It's a very delicate balance. And we will be talking, I think, to some of our ERAC partners and our other smaller item team partners to figure out what is the right balance between information and security. Yeah.
So Carrie from Berkeley mentioned that when the campus went to a two-step authentication process, the retirement center was there to support retirees. Same as FOBs in their retirement center, that our retirement center directors can help support these transitions. We just need to be notified before the retirees so that we can know how to support them in these transitions. Anything else, Carrie?
Thank you, Carrie. Absolutely. 100%. I think over the course of the last few years, we kind of lost that thread, and we are absolutely wanting to reestablish that relationship. In fact, I've been asking Bill about a travel budget for me to be able to go around and talk to the various campuses and retirement centers to kind of figure out what their needs are, what we need to do in order to make that better. It's all about the relationships and being able to exchange information. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Matt, again, thank you very much for this. This is really, really hard. And we all really appreciate your talking to us about it. And I know that you don't want to stand there and list, too many details of exactly what you're doing going forward and how it changes over time and so forth. But I know that you have worked with the leadership of CUCEA and CUCRA to, find a way to have our organizations engaged with you, right, to some extent. And I just want to say, I think that's really valuable, and I hope that you will continue to do that going forward. That's my
absolutely. And I think what we want to do is start working with you and running stuff by you to the level we can. When we have something we're ready to share, we'd probably want to bring that team, that group in and say, here's what we're thinking. Does this seem like that would be a good solution for this? Or here's two options. Which one seems better? Or where would this particular technology fit? I have some examples already in my mind that we could talk about maybe over dinner tonight. But one of the things we want to do is keep that dialogue going. Absolutely. And I think maybe we just, as I said before, we've gotten out of we've kind of let that relationship kind of not be tendered as much as it could have been over the last few years. And I think we're in a new model now where we're trying to use your knowledge as best we can and share what we can when we can. Yeah.
So I have a question, and Matt, I realize in framing the question that it could just as well be addressed to Bill or Kevin or other people who've presented. All of these things are promising, and they require people. And when I look at the organizational structure, I see a lot of empty cells, and I worry about that. These are very important positions, and I'm familiar, all of us are familiar with the financial strait of the university, and we understand the freezes and the difficulty adjudicating such things and prioritizing such things. In a funny sort of way, you guys do not represent university discretionary funds. You represent our funds and the funds that the university has already contributed to allow RASC to function and do its duties. I realize you can't answer this for a variety of reasons, but I would like to just say that I think the university needs to address quite seriously the holes in the structure and to fill those holes out of sequence, since we're not talking about discretionary university funding. I think that's really pressing. These are important issues, whether we're talking about member experience, member dollars, or efficiency of handling the system. So I expect you'll have an answer for that.
More, please. That's all I have. Yeah, I think it's always a challenge when you're somewhat constrained, but we are also working on every single way we can to get more out of the resources that we have. We have some ideas about how we can do some of that, but there's a limit, there's a ceiling on that, right? And so that's one of the things we're having conversations with our leadership.
Yeah. Those of us with Berkeley addresses, email addresses that we've kept, the Retiree Association says basically the Berkeley system seems to have been hacked. And what we are getting is Eventbrite or event notifications from other members that are fraudulent. At least one member had software when she tried to put that on her calendar, as far as I understand. Something took over her system and started sending Apple Pay gift cards out somewhere. Not sure that's to do with what you're doing. But there's another case. Well, would you recommend security software for somebody's software? My system doesn't seem to have done that. I'm using different security software. Second thing is, we're aware of a case where somebody was convinced that they had a fraud committed against them in which their email and contact information was changed. And then the notification that that was changed was sent to the new email. So is that being taken care of?
Yes, that's being taken care of. We are not doing that anymore. That's part of the manual process of looking at everything to make sure that everything is buttoned up on that. So yeah, we're not doing that anymore. In terms of recommendations, I could only tell you what I use, and we can talk about that after. I don't want to broadcast my particular set of security software only because I don't want to endorse one thing or the other. But I would say absolutely, you should have a password manager, and you should be using as many characters as they'll let you use in that software. I use probably 26 for mine because I'm not ever going to remember it anyway after it gets past 3. You should have security software on your laptop, your computer, whatever it is. And then there's a whole host of other types of things that potentially I could talk to you about. Yeah.
So a thing. Back in the day, we all got like a special LastPass.
LastPass is still a thing. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Bill's saying that the Experian solution also has a password manager with it. I wasn't aware of that. Any password manager is better than no password manager. The big boys in that one are Apple. I'm trying to think. Bitwarden and LastPass, I think, are the big ones.
And 1Password.
And 1Pass. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So you mentioned that there's there was discussion about communications, and one of the things I noticed in the New Dimensions article and the email that came out from the retirement center that if a transaction raises red flags, you may receive a verification call. And that was kind of concerning to me because the training, both to employees and the advocacy in the cyber security space for all people is don't respond to calls, don't respond to texts. So what are you saying in this communication that is contrary to that guidance or in line with that guidance?
That's a great question. I think what you've probably noticed is some of our let's stop the bleeding kind of activity, right? Let's get calls placed because that's the best way for us to protect other accounts right now. Let's make sure that and it is a very small percentage of people that we outbound call to do identity verification.
So then a follow-up, if you're doing these calls, what are you saying? Are you collecting information or asking to provide information when you make an outbound call?
My understanding, and Ming could speak to that, but yeah, because his team actually does the outbound calling.
Okay.
Yeah, so as part of the outbound call, so John, to the first question that you asked, though clearly when a person gets this call, they're suspicious, right? Right. So one option we give them is you can go online, you could dial the RASC, the official number. Okay. Call in, right? In that call tree right now, right, is a prompt. Okay, for if there's unrecognized activity on your account, or if somebody from RASC called you, okay, you can hit that prompt and you'll be live transferred to one of our compliance folks. Okay, so that's one way. If a person is suspicious, they can call into the main line and we can handle it that way. Okay. On what happens on these calls, so I think Matt talked about one of the services that we've added where there is a ID and selfie verification. That is the primary ask, right? Is to go through that process.
Yeah, and my chief concern is that when somebody gets a call, we're training them to be suspicious, right, just in general. So we can talk about this offline, but if the script includes on this outbound call, give us your information, I have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to learn more about that and be more comfortable.
We can do a follow-up on that for sure. For sure. Yeah.
So I appreciate your candor in self-grading, although there is no F minus. You can't get lower than an F. So this question may be for Bill or for that. So the issue is that we now have this chronic condition of low expectations. If you message RASC about an issue, almost anything, it's kind of like the old Roach Motel or a black hole. It just goes in and you never hear back, whether it's, insurance, like you have to say, gee, I haven't heard anything. I'm going to go in and check myself. Oh, it was changed. Nobody told me. Or, yes, we received your request for a direct deposit change. We're going to now authenticate it. Yay. Where's the, and someone will get back to you, or a decision will be made within 3 days or 5 days. Set the expectations, show the respect for the questioner that they're expecting. Like if there's a call to action, what action has been taken? Has it been done? Do they need more information? So just closing that loop would help people feel better, like the system is responsive, even if you're not doing anything differently. But I appreciate you have these great plans to improve both the communication side and the fraud protection. All good stuff.
I would like to say that what you've done there is highlight for us exactly where some of the deficiencies are in our system right now. And that's one of those things about status updates and how it integrates with UC or how it integrates with an outbound email or how it integrates with mail. We are working on that. We are very aware that we don't do a very good job of showing progress and where you are in that state anywhere. I don't want to say that the new Salesforce, new UC that we're hoping to have in about a year from now, that's probably tipping my hand, is going to solve all those problems, but it will make it much, much better because it's a solution designed to provide exactly what you just described. Yeah. Yes. I'm popular.
I know that. Boy, you are popular. So
Good.
what I want to add on to that, and that is that the follow-up, as long as it's not, I know our medical center here at UCLA is wonderful, but every time I go there, I get a follow-up survey by text, by email. So if you're going to do follow-up to find out what the quality of your service is, it can't be something that is automated like that goes out every time somebody has an experience with you, because that is as frustrating as everything else that happens. Thank you.
Good point. Good point. So I think we're under some time pressure, or how are we doing? Okay. Good. So I am going to talk about member experience, and this has a couple of areas to it. I'm going to start with retirement, right? And retirement is, when I think about this is, this is the heart of what we do, right? And it's something that I think over the last couple of years has improved. Okay. One thing Bill talked about was looking at how often are we paying on time, right? And when I look at that, when we look at last year, right, for 7/1 retirements, which is about half of the retirements that happened, we paid out on time 98% of the time, right? So that means you retire on 7/1, you get your first payment on 8/1. Okay, we hit 98% there. Okay, and that's the type of metrics that we're going to present more to you going forward, right? Is how are we doing on the metrics that matter, right? What I also want to say about retirement is, one of the things that we're seeing this year, right? So right now, the peak retirement season starts April 1. We're about 4th or 5th week right now, right? And we're seeing about 25% more retirements this year. Okay. That said, when we look at our processing and how we're doing, we're able to manage that volume well. Okay. So overall, when I think about retirement, we've got a pretty good control of the process. What I mean by that is when there's a problem, we can understand the problem quickly and we know what to do about it, right? I think if we could look back 3, 4, 5 years ago, I don't think that was the case, okay? So I'm feeling better about where we are. And what this is saying is basically, this is looking at, a 60 calendar day service level, right? And how are we doing against that 60-day target, right? You can see here we are typically, around 90%, right? Which is our target here. You can see the bottom line. That bottom line is the median days that it's taking. That's coming down. Okay, so overall, I think the retirement story is one where, we've got a lot less on the escalation side. We're very good on the on-time payment side, right? So I'm feeling good, but there is a lot more volume going through this year so far. Okay. So I'm going to move now to our contact center. Okay. So our contact center, so this is looking at inbound calls, inbound correspondence, which is the secure messages that come through UC Race, and then also documents, right? Now, one of the things that Bill talked about was we realigned the team, right? So these three functions used to be separate. We've brought them all under one leader now, right? All right. And when I look at our call answer times, the focus here on the blue line, right? So the blue line is and the blue bar here is what's happening on our tier 2 or our on-site Oakland team. Okay, that's the team that's taking the bulk of the volume. Average speed of answer is around 2.5 minutes, 3.5. Okay, I'll talk in the next slide about what our target is. Okay, but if you look year over year, Jan through March here, Jan through March there of last year, we're doing a lot better. Okay. The other thing to notice here is on the yellow, which is our tier 1, Unify HR. That's our outsource call team. That volume's coming down, right? We are going to end that contract in a few months. Okay, so going forward, starting August, we're basically going to have one bar and one line here. Much simpler team setup, right? And I think that's going to be the way forward for us to drive down the call answer time further. Okay. If I look at this on a 3-minute SLA basis, so that's that yellow line here, right? Which is our target here is to answer 85% of calls within 3 minutes. Okay. Over time, we want to drive this down. We want to go from 3 minutes down to 2.5, down to 2, right? Right. Best in class here is actually 30 seconds, right? Right. So against the 3-minute mark, we're not hitting that 85% yet. And that's what, Bill was saying, C minus. Okay. We've gotten better, but we're not where we need to be. Okay. Now that said, when I look at this, by day of week, right? If you look at Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, we're much closer to that 85%. Okay. Monday and Tuesdays tend to be higher volume after the weekend, right? Right. That's where, call answer times take a bit longer, right? If I look at the last couple of weeks, last week we were at 83%, right? Right. So overall, we're doing better, but we're not where we need to be on this. Okay. And this will continue to be a focus area is how do we answer those calls faster. On the correspondence side, so this is the secure message side again. So one of the things that here is, if you look at the line here, this is against our service level here, which is 2 business days, right? So that service level has taken a hit recently. That is intentional, right? So we have moved more resources over to the call side. That's one of the advantages of creating the contact center is now we can move our resources around a bit more to where it really matters. And one of the things over the last couple of months was we had a lot more calls. We wanted to answer those calls faster, right? Right. So we intentionally moved some resources over to help with that, right? Right. But our goal here again is to get this back up to the target, which is 90% within 2 business days. When I look at our member satisfaction, overall, we look at this. So right now, this is a 5-point scale. Our top 2 boxes are satisfied and very satisfied, right? So the top 2 boxes here add up to 73.3%. It's okay. We want to get this to 85%, right? And this is the trend here as well, right? So this is for all calls, the secure message side. We have some counseling in here, and we want to do this for retirement and the survivor process too. That was one of the things in the JBC report that's on our roadmap to expand these surveys. To this point, we're going to do our best not to inundate you all with this, but this is an important part of how we measure how we are doing. Okay, I'm going to move to survivor now. Survivor is a key focus area, right? I think retirement, again, I think we're doing a lot better. I think contact center, we're seeing improvement there. Survivor is the area where we're not doing what we should be doing here in terms of speed. Okay, you can see here that this is how long the survivor process is taking end to end. In the JBC report, talks about 111 days. This is where that number is coming from. Again, the trend line is good. We made some improvements, but we're nowhere close to where we need to be on this. I'm going to talk a bit about what we're doing. Okay. So this is a different look at it. Okay. This is against our service level, which right now is 90 calendar days, which again, it's too long, but that's where we're at currently. We want to bring that 90 days down to 60 days, right? But at 90 days, again, the service level is improving. We were down to the 20s. Now we're in the 40s, right? But obviously there's a large gap here, right? And a couple of things here, right? So when I look at this, if you take a look at this from the processing stage by stage by stage, the first stage is to get the packet out, okay? And this is a key part here is we got to get the beneficiary packet out quickly. For that stage, we've gone from 30 days down to 3 days. Okay. Now, then it's okay. Once the packet is out, is it very clear to the person what they need to do? Right. So one of the recommendations in the JBC report was a checklist, right? So that checklist now is ready to go in May. Okay. So it'll go out in a few weeks. So in that packet will be a very clear checklist of this is what you need to send back. This is what you need to do. Right. Next stage is we got to review those packets faster, right? So within 24 to 48 hours, we should be looking at that packet. Is everything there? Is everything accurate? Is there something missing? And getting back to the person so that they could get everything in so that we can start processing it. Okay. Once we're processing it, there's a point on comms, right? We are going to get back to folks every 7 to 14 days with an update, the status update on what is going on with their packet, with their processing. Okay, so all of this is happening right now. This is a key focus is how do we get this process moving faster? How do we get this closer to our service level? Okay. I am going to hand it over to Kevin right now. He's going to talk about retirement readiness.
Thank you to whoever that fan was in the back. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to give you a quick update on where retirement readiness stands. So what you're gonna see on the next slide is a response to kind of what we've heard from the centers and campuses about what they want out of counseling the past several years. But this slide represents the counseling demand from May of last year to appointments that have been set already for April and May this year. So similar to prior years, up until about November, demand remained relatively steady, hovering around the low 20 days to wait between when you're able to see a counselor versus when you book your meeting. So 20-day wait time. As you can see, the demand has remained steady. You know, month over month, we're seeing 400 to 600 members over Zoom face to face, and you can see that we hit a peak rush in April and in May. And part of the reason we're seeing so much demand is the presence that we've had both virtually in webinars. Uh-oh. Yeah. I don't know if I. Now I know why everyone else was walking around. So as we saw this demand coming, right? So in 2024, when counseling launched, we had a little over 5,000 appointments. And we had 6,000 appointments last year, and it's been the same team, same team of 8 counselors since inception. And so as we increased our visibility, it served as a marketing engine for our team, right? Just from September to April of this year, retirement counseling began hosting the UCRS webinars, which includes the Preparing for Retirement webinar, Retiree Health, the Retirement Process Steps webinar, and a new Medicare webinar through the Confident Retiree series. So just with that group alone, we were able to meet with 7,500 members over the live Zoom sessions during that period. We also 24 live webinars throughout that period. Additionally, we had 12 pathway to retirement webinars, which includes both on-site and virtual presence for campus-specific webinars. Many of the retirement center directors attend those pathway series with the healthcare facilitators, and those are performed or co-hosted by Fidelity as well. And on the previous slide, you can see there was a decrease in, I don't think it was a decrease in demand, but lower volume during the November timeframe. We saw we had counselors visit 11 campuses during open enrollment during that period, and I know some of you attend your campus open enrollment fair, and if there's more that we could do to support retirees during this year's open enrollment, we'd want to do the same. So while we still want one-on-one counseling over Zoom to highlight what the team does. And we were able to sustain the number of the wait times between appointments while picking up the appointment volume by 800, and also complementing that with the webinars and on-site visits. And we do expect to continue to partner with campus locations and maintain that presence, and hopefully in the near future have more counselors to support the demand. Counseling questions? We need to move on.